Environmental protesters made a scene today while attempting to vandalize a famous British landmark.
Oh my God. No!
Video shows bystanders trying to intervene as activists sprayed the Stonehenge monument in orange paint. A group called Just Stop Oil appears to be behind the stunt. They want the British government to stop extracting and burning fossil fuels by 2030. Stonehenge is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of Britain's most visited tourist spots. Local police took 2 people into custody following this incident. My next guest says the actions do not actually drive substantive change, but instead believes targeted actions will. Laura Thomas Walters is a research scientist and deputy director of experimental research for the Yale program on climate change communication. She joins us now from Swansea, where she is based. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight.
No problem at all. Happy to talk about it.
What did you think when you saw this video of these activists putting paint on this historic tourist attraction?
Well, the first thing I thought was I need to stay away from the comment sections because I bet it's just going to be awful. I mean, one thing with...
I was going to say, why don't you think this will create substantive change?
It's not targeting the right people. To create lots of research into the history of successful social movements shows that to create political change, you need to be targeting people who can make change. So we need to be targeting like the banks, the legal system, the government, not, you know, UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yeah, and why do you think that we're seeing more of this kind of extreme activism in sometimes odd places, galleries, UNESCO World Heritage Sites, as you say? It seems like we are seeing more and more of this type of activism lately.
Well, it gets attention. It gets media attention, gets people talking about it. Earlier in the year, we had like 60,000 odd people outside Parliament protesting for like 4 days. It didn't get nearly as much media attention as this one act by 2 people got.
So in that way, is it not effective in drawing attention to their cause, even though their activities are extreme? I've heard some activists say that.
Well, so with any sort of climate action, you've got 2 goals. One, you want to create political change,
right, and
that's not doing it. But the other goal is to try and mobilize new activists, get new people to join you. And our research shows that this sort of really disruptive protest, it does like drive, donations, and it drives signups. It's polarizing. Lots of people won't like it, but some people will like it and will join because of it. So in that respect, it's often successful.
Could it push a lot of people away, the larger public? I mean, is there a PR aspect to this as well? And there could be a fine line in terms of people saying, okay, this is too extreme. I listen to what you have to say, but not if you're going to go to these kinds of measures.
So what typically happens is we get this radical flank effect. So people will be like, wow, don't like Just Stop Oil. But then other groups in the same area start looking more reasonable and more moderate. There's a really good argument that, if we didn't have Malcolm X, Martin Luther King wouldn't have been nearly as successful, because Martin Luther King was pretty radical in his own way. Mm-hmm. But he looked more moderate and like more appealing to the government and everything because Malcolm X also existed.
So where do you think the future is heading in terms of climate activism?
Well, I think it needs to be a lot more targeted and sustained. These big, flashy one-off events, they're not going to create political, change. We need to impose sustained disruption on the people that really matter. However, every day people are dying because of climate change. I mean, you've got a massive heat dome happening in Canada right now that's made much more likely because of climate change. Sure. And when you see people dying, it's really easy to just get so upset and, you want to cry out, you want to do something that you hope will get attention, get people to listen to you. So we might see more and more of these extreme events if governments don't start paying attention.
And so in your view, what is the more effective way to challenging the status quo and challenging government to make change as opposed to this type of action?
Yeah. Yeah, so, instead of this really big flashy stunt, a coordinated approach at like Barclays, one of the big banks that is funding new fossil fuel licenses, targeting them in a sustained manner to try and change their status quo, change their cost benefit analysis of whether it's worth it for them to keep investing into these things until, they go, we're forced to stop. That's where we'll see more progress, I think.
Okay, Laura, appreciate the time. That is Laura Thomas-Walters, a research scientist and deputy director of experimental research for the Yale program on climate change communication.